All right, welcome everybody. We're so excited to be with you here today. I have an amazing guest with me, Katherine Flesher, owner of Three Treasures, and maybe I shouldn't say the sole owner because I know your husband Tomas is probably part owner as well. I suppose you'll let him show up once in a while.
Yeah, definitely.
But we're very excited to have you here today, Katherine.
Thank you.
Um, yeah, I know my wife and I have used your services for many years. We've a little bit about maybe how you got started with
Definitely.
what you do, because I know you've done Chinese medicine and acupuncture in the past. So maybe what the transition was for you in your own
Yeah,
life.
definitely. Thank you. Thanks for having me, the opportunity to tell my story, and thanks for your great work, which has benefited my family and our patients. So great
Awesome.
symbiotic relationship here. So I always start my story with I basically struggled with health and vitality pretty much my whole life. And as a child of four, I had pneumonia they really didn't think I was going to make it. I was hospitalized and tried lots of different things. They had to aspirate my lungs. I was in an oxygen tent. And so just kind of a rough go. And then just always struggled with immunity, a lot of digestive problems. As a teenager, just like emotional and just, things I have really learned about health. You're either on an upward spiral or a downward spiral. And I felt like I kind of started on the downward spiral pretty early. So and then, of course, just the tools at hand, I was subjected to a lot of antibiotic use, which, as we know, there are really often much more effective and elegant ways to try to, improve immunity. But that was, just kind of what was at hand. And so then I remember by the time I was in college, there was a year I was on antibiotics for sinus infections, like probably almost constantly. So just things were really going from bad to worse. And I was actually, probably I was feeling rather hopeless in life too, just because my general vitality was so low. And I was really just basically struggling to survive. And I had started out pre-med, despite the fact that really I hadn't been helped very much by Western medicine. My orientation, again, based on my exposure and what I had come in contact with, it was like, I felt like, okay, I was kind of aiming in the right direction based on my experience and, wanting to help people be healthy. And, you always kind of learn what you need to know for yourself. So I think that was, part of my story. And I was, realized it, and so such a clear sense of like how poor health, poor immunity, low vitality just really limits your life. Because at that point, I realized I don't have the stamina to even go through the program of medical school. Wasn't like really loving my classes anyway, but so
It's
there's
a
a
big
big point.
realization, though.
What's that?
It's a big realization to,
Yeah, and
know,
kind of,
after those
then I
programs
was,
for so long, and you kind of have a vision in mind, but if you don't have the energy to move toward it, you
yeah,
realize you have to do something about it.
Yeah, and so it was kind of a crisis point because it was like, well, wow, I don't know what to do, and I ended up taking anthropology classes to fulfill some requirements. I learned about medical anthropology, which basically looks at all the different ways other cultures look at the body, look at illness, look at cure, and coming from our Western background and where things are presented in the scientific model and it's like it seems so objective and so solid and so just pure fact, no other possibility. It really opened my mind and I thought, wow, I think I want to study alternative medicine someday. And that was kind of the seed was planted. And so fast forward, after college I ended up studying acupuncture here in town at the school that has now been, that's part of the Northwestern Health Sciences University. And that was a really wonderful experience for me. And I finally got a handle on some of my health issues, really started to have some, vitality, wasn't constantly sick. And I see patients like this now. They come in and it's like they're actually never well. It's like they're either actively have a cold or then they kind of don't know if am I getting over a cold or am I getting another cold.
Anyone,
So
right?
it's kind of a sad situation. So
Mhm.
Yeah. But yeah, so that really gave me a leg up, and then, started my acupuncture practice, then started a family. And then as often I see again with patients, it's like I had reached a level of somewhat stability. And as I kind of look back now, I realize like it got me to the point of like surviving, but I wasn't really thriving. And
Right.
so yeah, and so then my husband and I, we had 2 kids, and just kind of the challenges to the body. And then just kind of all the hormonal fluctuations that can put a lot of stress on the body. And if there's some unresolved issues, they can really come to the forefront after pregnancy and childbirth, and then just the stress and exhaustion of having small children. So then I had, kind of reached a certain level of health, but then really started to decline. And actually then when so in about 2009, I actually was diagnosed with Hashimoto's, which
Wow.
is an autoimmune thyroid disease. And there is a history of thyroid issues in my family. And then I really was reluctant to want to have to enter the stream of Western medicine when I hadn't done that to solve my other issues that had come up. So it really was another point where I just had to dig deep, and did a ton of stuff with diet. Found the GAPS diet, which is a really intense healing diet, very restrictive, really based on healing and sealing the gut, which all of the research really says, that these autoimmune issues directly relate to the gut and leaky gut. And so I did that and kind of got a bump up, and then was still feeling like, okay, I'm doing a lot better. And I was feeling like I was, able to do what I needed to do. But again, not really that sense of like I'm thriving. But
Right.
yeah, so then just kind of keep looking for the next little piece. And then that is when the work that I'm currently doing basically just fell in my lap, and it was an aha moment, and this is it. So I had been familiar with Standard Process. They have some really, really unique products and formulas that literally no one else is doing. And so I had found out about these, and some of their products worked really well for autoimmunity and inflammation, just modulating the immune system. And I just kind of started playing around with those. But their system is actually quite complicated, and you really have to do a lot of learning. And
Right.
so I delved in more, and then it's a professional line. So my account rep said, hey, come take a class, learn some more. And I was like, sure, what the heck? And then I took the program on NRT, and I went and did, which stands for Nutrition Response Testing.
Yeah.
And
That's
then
what
I
I
went
want
and
to talk about more here is getting
yes, yes, yeah. And then, so did further training through their program in Florida. And then, and I felt like that then gave me, just the other leg up. And so, so that's kind of, so I guess, a lot of what I do, I think like so many people, you learn what you need for yourself. And then you realize the joy of like getting your life back, and you want to be able to share that. So.
Right. I know so many of the people that we see in our office, they've spent more time researching their concern, their condition, than just about anyone that I know, because they're so fed up like you were, where you feel like I'm getting along okay, but I'm struggling enough that I need to do something about it. You get to that next level, and again, like you're doing okay, but then maybe the kids bring you down, and you got to find that next level again. And
And it's really interesting
because they've been looking so hard, and they're like, I can't quite put the pieces together.
Yeah. And there kind of always is another piece. And, I really do believe, that our, as humans, we want to keep growing. We want to keep expanding. We kind of want to keep living a bigger life and reaching our potential. And so, you get a little better, and then for a while you're satisfied, but then you're like, I want to do more. So, it's sort of the like, okay, either you do less to match your energy, or you figure out how to pull yourself up so you have more vitality, more energy, so then you can, do more of what you want to do with your life. So
Yeah, and we see a lot of families too where the moms, like in your situation, they're doing okay, but with kids and managing home and work and school and all these things, it's just this huge added stressor pushing down.
yeah.
And now suddenly their body can't hold up to that anymore.
Exactly.
And it's no
And
fun to have to give up your ideal or your dreams or the things
yeah,
you do to match that, like you said.
yeah. And it's very scary too, because you realize there's a lot of people depending on you and you're functioning
Absolutely.
well. And so that's another source of stress.
Mhm. Yes, when you're the most, when you're keeping the household together, it's a big
Yeah.
job.
Yeah. So,
So
yeah.
tell me then a little bit about how you approach looking at someone, because it sounds like you've had such firsthand experience with yourself and with your patients. What
Yeah.
is the philosophy that you've developed when you are looking at a person?
Yeah, definitely. So it's interesting because people find our work with nutrition, NRT. I actually kind of have called it nutritional healing, just because I
Mhm.
start to incorporate so much other learning and my Chinese medicine background. But so people
Yeah.
always ask, is this Chinese medicine? And that's a funny question, because technically, this was a system developed by chiropractors.
Mhm.
It really isn't Chinese medicine in terms of the modalities of acupuncture, Chinese herbs. I feel like it is Chinese medicine because I practice Chinese medicine.
Mhm.
So I'm looking at things through this lens. And so Chinese medicine is a wonderful thing. It's thousands of years old, and I think the beauty of it is it developed at a time when it was necessary to treat small problems when they were small.
Okay.
You didn't have the luxury of getting a new hip or a new knee or a new liver or a new kidney. You had to make do with what you got. And Chinese medicine too really places a very high premium on longevity, and that's partly a spiritual thing too, where like to really fully master, being a wise human being actually is going to take you a while. It's not a quick job. So
Mhm.
so really tunes into subtleties. I'm a good listener. I had one of my first teachers said, if you really listen to your patients, they are always telling you exactly what is going on with them.
Yeah.
So part of it is just really that kind of deep listening to what people are saying and kind of creating the space for them to say something. A lot of times people will say, kind of just giving them the space, like, well, I don't know if this is important, or I never really thought about this, but maybe, and oftentimes those are exactly the keys to, what is going on with them.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so I think at least my own experience with my wife and I seeing you is taking that approach of putting all the little pieces together,
Mm.
because all these little things that the patient might be saying, I don't know if this is important. I don't know if this is important. I don't know if this is important. Enough of them together suddenly start to paint this really big picture
Yeah.
and give you
Yeah.
any clues. And that's what I think with your background, combining that with the nutrition response testing and the
Yeah.
nutrition healing is so unique, but comprehensive at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. I think so too. And occasionally too, I will take a look at somebody's tongue or take a pulse, and that's more
Mhm.
of the traditional you know information gathering through
Yep.
Chinese medicine. So and then so okay, so motivated by my own need for continued help with my health, but also in the clinic we were just seeing like people's health overall just kind of as modern people is sadly low, and
Mhm.
really just feeling like not only did I need more tools but other people did too. So when this modality fell in my lap, it's just a very organized method. Somebody comes in, I listen to their story, take a case history, and then they get up on the table and using applied kinesiology, do muscle testing, which works with the nervous system and gives me information about the different organs. So the process is, somebody comes in and then they're on the table, make sure nervous system is regulated because that's how our body heals and communicates with
Mhm.
itself. If there's dysregulation there's probably some sort of challenge going on in your body that I feel like, it's like kind of how I conceive of it, is like it sort of blows the circuits. It's like
Right.
it's just so much your body just really isn't keeping it together. And
And then
I
you
don't
can help to pinpoint to where that challenge is, right? Because I
yeah,
know, at least with my own experience, you can scan and say, is it the thyroid? Is it the tonsils? Is it the heart, the lungs, the stomach?
yes.
You sort of have a body scan. You can pinpoint what areas it might be.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And then what
So,
do you do next as you're gathering
yeah,
that?
right. So we first want to make sure that, sort of like your whole system of communication is actually accurate. And then go through, do the body scan and, test different parts of the brain, the sinuses, the tonsils, the thyroid, lungs, heart, the thymus, spleen, pancreas, stomach, liver, gallbladder, small intestine, large intestine.
Mhm.
For females, ovary and uterus, males, the reproductive, the prostate,
Mhm.
bladder, kidneys, and adrenals. So those are kind of the basic things we go through. Then
Okay.
what I also love about this is there's a method too to see what's the priority, because obviously we don't want to chase around. Okay, we're going to give you, kind of silly to do. So yeah, so going through then and finding what the priority organ is, and then taking a look through, again, it's an energetic form of testing. So it's not using a lab. It's just a test kit with vials that have energetic preparations of immune challenges, which come in form of virus, bacteria, fungus, and parasites. And then looking at different heavy metals and chemicals.
Okay.
And then also looking at different food sensitivities. It's by no means an exhaustive food sensitivity test, but it kind of gets at the basic things that really challenge people. So like dairy, wheat, eggs, sugars, soy, different grains, things like that. So that's kind of the information gathering
And
process.
that's one thing I really like about the information gathering process is, like you said, you don't need to send out for a test, and you can gather so much in that moment with the muscle testing. So it's such a quick feedback with the testing.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like, most of the times I feel really happy with the level of accuracy it provides. People will get other tests and they will get labs, or they will see, their MD, get some blood work. And it does really dovetail with what I find. I love it too in our patients that we share. I love it when people share their scans that they get at whole family. And
Right.
I love it because it seems like, most of the time it's really, again, that dovetail where it's like, oh yeah, that's exactly what I'm seeing too. So
Yep.
that's really, encouraging. So
Definitely. Yeah. And it's nice to see what we like about our referrals is with our adjustments, we're focusing on helping connect the brain to the body so things can work better internally. But often there's maybe too much stress coming from the outside that the body still needs some additional support. And
mhm.
that's what I like about with you guys, what you're testing is to see what might a weak point be that needs some extra support. If you give the support there, then the rest of the body starts to work better to be able to heal.
Yeah, it is really interesting the way they work together. And two, I know I've had patients that I've worked with where I feel like they're just kind of stalling out, and then once they have seen you guys, I think just opening up things on that more nervous system level and
Right.
getting the body's, communication working better, then people have been able to, really make some more progress then too. So
Definitely. So
yeah.
once you gather your information and you have your
Mhm.
priorities and what organs, what areas of the body need help, what do you do then to put a recommendation plan together? What
Yeah.
does that look like to
Yeah,
start supporting the
definitely.
body once you
Right.
figure out what's going on? Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So yeah, that's definitely a next step. And then so yep, you find out, okay, what's the priority? Then what are the stressors? So maybe somebody has a virus and they have heavy metals. Okay, so then there's I have all different things in my sort of remedy kit. Then I'll
Mhm.
put things on the body, and then energetically when it's sitting on you, it's a part of you. So your body thinks it's a part of. And so then I'll retest and make sure that all of the areas that were weak now are testing strong. And then two, we'll look at, okay, so foods, is there something you need to just for a period, abstain from? Generally, I know that that's really challenging for people. So I really try to be sensitive to those things and work with people where they're at. Um, and sometimes it's like, okay, it's absolutely critical that you avoid dairy, and, your healing totally depends on it. And, then we'll, try to do 90 days and see what happens. And ultimately my goal is that people can have more freedom in what they need. And I think if you are eating whole foods that are real foods and, good quality, your body really should be able to digest them. And so I think I notice a lot of tendency where people kind of look at food as the be all end all and like, I got these labs and I can't eat blueberries or tuna or chicken or, whatever. And it's like, and then I've had people who they come back and they almost react to everything. And obviously that's not sustainable.
No. And what are your thoughts on that then, of the difference between getting that lab test and they say, oh, you're sensitive to these foods, and you check them off the list and you can never eat them again, versus building up the body? Because my experience has been with talking to you and other patients that if you can build the body up, then maybe those aren't going to be on your checklist in the future.
Exactly. Yeah. And I really do feel like food sensitivities are a result of probably underlying gut issues and immune issues and probably some impaired detoxification. So, the body is just somewhat overloaded, and I know there's cases too where maybe you genetically don't have the enzyme, so that there's certain things that, okay, maybe you don't. But even in those cases, or people who have a really severe, sensitivity or an allergy, at least get their body strong enough that if they accidentally encounter it, that it doesn't totally derail them. But there's so many different ideas about ideal diet, and food is so emotional, and people like start to really wrap their identity up in like, I eat paleo, I'm vegan, just like, and we get way too much information. So it's very confusing for people, and people come in and they really have no idea what to eat. And so I don't think there's necessarily a one size fits all ideal diet for everyone for every time of life. I think different stages of life, different phases of healing really require different things. I also make a distinction between a healing diet and a healthy diet. So a healing diet is something like GAPS, where you're very restricted and your food is your medicine and you're really trying to accomplish something very specific. So, food can get so emotional and so compulsive, but really it's like, it really should be like, what are you trying to achieve, and so that's
that it's, there might be healthy foods, but they might not be healthy for everyone all the time. And if your body's depleted or run down, I know two sister-in-laws are acupuncturists, and they always talk about your digestion needs a certain amount of fire and energy to digest your food. So if it's run down and you eat a bunch of cold, raw veggies all the time, it might be healthy for some people some of the time, but in your situation, they're not going to work.
Yeah, exactly. And, so Chinese medicine is very much about, net gain, not like the gross nutrition in a piece of food, but what's your net gain on that? So how much are you actually going to get from that? So, and that is the thing too, it's like, you're looking at, okay, are you putting healthy food in, and are you actually absorbing and assimilating that? And that really, it's all, so in Chinese medicine, we talk about qi, which is energy. So it's all about qi. So you want your food to have good qi, but you want your body to have good qi as well.
Yes.
Yeah. And so there is a saying in Chinese medicine, eat what you can digest. And so if that is, basically 3 foods, eat that. And then, your body will get stronger. And, I also have in my experience personally and working with patients, diet is so important, but it's never enough. If you're really dealing with some kind of chronic illness or, some autoimmunity, you're not going to unravel it with diet alone. I mean, that's my experience personally, and my experience with the people I work with. It's a super essential component, but it's not the end of the story.
Yep. And that's what we see too with people coming in and they working so hard to take vitamins or eat healthy foods and fresh and organic. And then we do our scans in our office and we see the nerves from their brain down to their stomach are being blocked.
Yeah.
So they're putting all the good things in, but they're their nervous system can't help the stomach digest it. And I see
Yeah.
that similar with
Yep.
what you're doing is what can your body eat, the foods your body can actually digest. And
Exactly.
that's where you're getting your nutrients from.
Exactly, right. And that's, I think, too, where we can get confused with so much information like, oh, chia seeds are supposed to be so good for me. And they're like, if they make you sick, well, they're not good for you.
Right, exactly. So as you have sort of that plan together, I know a big part of it then is finding if there is a weak point, giving some whole food supplements to help
Yes.
support the body.
Mhm.
What's
Mhm.
the difference between being tested as what you do in your case for a very specific supplement versus saying, I have these symptoms or this diagnosis, I have Hashimoto's, I have
Mhm.
adrenal fatigue, and just taking a symptom based on your diagnosis?
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, that's a really interesting thing. And right back from Chinese Medicine 101, it was really cool. They gave, you know, like case study, basically 4 people had the same diagnosis. And then looking at it through Chinese medicine lens, they basically had radically different things going on.
Yeah.
So, the end result is different from the root. And so, yeah. So looking at that. So, yeah. So I definitely look at, protocols and what works, but kind of at that foundation, it's, this is a very personalized approach to a plan for your healing. It's not just like, okay, we're going to give you these 5 things because those are supposed to work. It's like, okay, no, first, and so, I do work with a lot of autoimmunity, and it is this intersection of gut issues and poor digestion and low immunity and poor detoxification. And so, there's also another concept that I really love and refer to a lot from Chinese medicine, where they talk about knotty diseases, so like a knot, and that's really what I see with these more complex kind of modern issues that people have. It's like, all right, so you got this big knot. What do you do? And it's really this very elegant process of like teasing out the strands one by one. And what I love about this process too is I feel like it's very driven by the body and what the body is ready to do next. I had someone in who did have Hashimoto's, and we worked for 6 months before heavy metals actually even came up. And she said, that's really interesting because I went to a naturopath years ago who said, you're full of heavy metals. And, I don't know if they actually, I don't remember, or maybe didn't get the information, if they actually tried to approach that. But, think timing is important. So, maybe you could just try to like get rid of heavy metals, but maybe your body isn't ready. Maybe your detox pathways aren't open. Maybe that's going to just freak out your immune system. So it is really just this process of like teasing out the strands one by one. And then too, another concept from Chinese medicine that I really think about is just this idea, they talk about tonifying and dispersing. So like if there's a genuine deficiency, you need to like help the body build up. But if you have, what I would view as excess are like, heavy metals or chemicals or, byproducts of food not being properly digested or immune issues, those are things you have to get rid of. But, and I see too, again, people who have really chronic stuff, it is this constant sort of dance between building up, detoxing, okay, building up, detox, so there is like the word I end up using a lot is it feels elegant. Like there's an elegance to the timing and the, just the idea of the body leading the process. So,
Right.
And I'm just trying to follow it.
Right? It takes energy to do a detox. So you can, if your body's been stressed or depleted for a lot of years, you can't just detox, because you can't spend that much energy and expect to be healthy at the end.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what I like is it's finding what's most appropriate in the moment, because all stresses like that knot, like if it's tied up in all these ways, it yields maybe a certain diagnosis.
Yes.
Like Hashimoto's, but if you just say, oh, this equals Hashimoto's, and all you do is treat the diagnosis, you're not able to do the thread at a time. Pretty soon, you're spending all your energy just treating this, but it's a process of unlayering and peeling back those layers. Yeah,
and it's like, I kind of think about it, it's like you could just be throwing a lot of stuff at it. It's like just kind of bouncing back.
Right. We had a couple, husband and wife, that have seen us mutually, and they mentioned one day they both had adrenal fatigue. So both showed up as a symptom, would say adrenal fatigue, take the same thing.
Yeah.
They had tested for different adrenal support,
Yeah.
and one day one of them ran out, so they took their spouses, and while they were taking their own, they both did really well. They had better energy. But when one had ran out, they took their spouses, and it
Yep.
didn't work.
Interesting.
So such a good example of that. A diagnosis doesn't equal take these certain vitamins, take these supplements, take these meds. But if you actually listen to the body, you can find what the body wants, regardless of the diagnosis.
Yeah, and it is like a magic miracle when you really can hit that target, you know. And I feel like too, the body is so incredibly intelligent. I mean, look at just, we take it for granted, but the fact that, okay, here's an apple and now it's me, you know, like the intelligence that actually makes that process happen is really quite unfathomable. So our bodies are so smart. And so I feel like too, and again, similar in our approach where you guys use sort of the least amount of force possible to create a big shift. Because it's like, you know, I feel like a lot of times the body just needs a little ping, you know, you don't need to slam it with a sledgehammer.
Right.
It's kind of that ping.
And I like that, as you're mentioning that, I know a lot of times if you go and you get a jar of vitamin C or B vitamins or whatever it is, because I used to take those in the past, and even if it was a good company, if they're more synthetically made, it's like 1,000% of vitamin B. And I know my urine turns yellow, and I'm like, I probably didn't absorb a fraction of that anyway. But that if you're doing synthetic vitamins, you're having to take these huge doses.
Yeah.
Is what I like about the standard process.
Yes.
It's actually a whole food, so it's an apple condensed into a powerful apple that you get not only the vitamin that you're looking for, but some of the other components. Correct?
Yes.
You absorb it and use it better. Could you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, that is a great thing. I love to talk about that. So, and I hadn't realized this either. And I used to work, when I was in acupuncture school, I worked in a health food store. So I get all the pitfalls. I read all the stuff. I would get excited about stuff. I was a massive pill popper and probably screwed myself up. But anyway, that's part of the learning. But yeah, so actually with standard process, they are whole foods. A lot of it is grown on their own farm, their organic farm, and the farm is beautiful. It's just an amazing thing to see. They've won awards for their sort of agricultural practices and conservation, and this whole green manure thing where they're mulching different fallow crops into the soil, and it's, the soil is probably some of the richest soil on the planet. And honestly, that's where it starts. It starts with good soil. Because, really physically, our bodies are really just chunks of earth. That's it. And so what you're putting into it is really important. And then their processing is also really amazing. Like they have these basically massive juicers that go onto the field, and they're throwing beets in there, like, right from the ground into the juicer. Then it goes to a dehydrator, so every piece of how they process things is very thought out in terms of maximizing that bioavailability. So this is something I didn't know, which I thought was really fascinating. But so again, nature is way smarter than we're ever gonna crack that code. So when you take, let's say, people think of vitamin C as ascorbic acid, which that's just a little component of it. But there's all kinds of other, aspects and cofactors and, other pieces to that we haven't even identified. And when you continually take those, really isolated parts of a nutrient, your body actually has to rob your own tissues to get the cofactors and the other pieces in order to utilize it. So it's interesting too, because the standard process, many of the supplements actually do contain some synthetic vitamins, but they are always occurring in the base of what they would naturally occur in. So you're supplied with the enzymes and the cofactors as would be in a whole food, but you do get that. You're taking supplements basically because you realize, like, I can never eat that much food to fill in the gap I have right now.
Mhm.
So.
Yeah, that's what I've been really intriguing just learning about nutrition over the years too, is that the vitamin C in an orange doesn't get absorbed in your body, just the vitamin C, but it's everything around it that
Yeah.
the orange has in it that helps you absorb it.
Yeah, and that I have 2 cases. I'm getting a little feedback. Are you hearing that?
I'm good right now, so hopefully.
Okay. Okay. But so I had 2 cases recently which were really illustrative of the problems of taking synthetic supplements. So one was a woman on iron supplements, tons of gut issues, anemia, just could not get those levels to rise in her labs. And she came in and was tested, and I actually found a metal toxicity of iron. So her supplements were not only working, but they were creating a toxicity. And then, so not only is it not doing what it's supposed to, she then is not able to absorb the natural iron occurring in the foods she eats.
Right.
So, yeah, and so actually we've been working together for a while. Her gut issues are normalizing, and her she's on standard process Pharaoh food, which is their iron supplement. Her all her levels, marking her hemoglobin, are rising. So really, that's a great example of that.
Mm-hmm.
Another woman I had who came in with chronic migraines, had been taking B6 because she's read B6 is great for migraines. When we really started talking, she realized that they had actually gotten worse once she started taking the B6. And then, so we took her off of that and started, unraveling some of her issues, and things improved. But yeah, and I know I had this, and I think it's pretty common. You think of them as sort of benign, like, oh, I'll just take it and maybe it's good for me, and if it's not, I'll pee it out and no big deal.
Yeah,
but it isn't really, it isn't like that. And one of my favorite Chinese medicine teachers had a saying. He said, we're kind of looking for that insurance policy. And I feel like people who just kind of randomly take supplements, you're kind of looking for an insurance policy. And my teacher, he always said there's always a cost for just in case. So like when you throw the extra needle in, or when you throw that extra herb in, or because you're like, oh, just in case, it's like there's always a cost for it. So again, like coming back to that idea of elegance and really just kind of minimal force.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we learn with our chiropractic style too, is less is more.
Yeah.
And that the biggest factor when we're adjusting is actually to know when not to adjust and not when to guess. And we're like, let's throw in an extra one, because that extra one might be what pushes someone over the edge or creates more stress in their body.
It's kind of like, I think, like in the creative process, if you're like making any sort of piece of art, you got to know when to stop.
Right.
You're going to mess it up. It's good. Leave it alone.
All right. So this has been really wonderful, Katherine. I really enjoyed this conversation. I think we're going to have a lot of good feedback. And if you guys, as you're watching it, if you're not watching it live and you do have a question, feel free to put it in the comments below, and we'll be able to follow up and answer that. We'll also put 3 Treasures contact info in the comments. I know you guys are easy to get to over in Minneapolis, so
yep.
Centrally located for most of us here in the Twin Cities. Anything you'd like to wrap up with or say as final thoughts here as we're coming to a close? I think
just that really thinking about things as, again, my Chinese medicine background, thinking of everything as is chi and energy. And so, if you want to live a life of greater vitality, just making sure, the food you're eating is vital, the activities you're engaging in, are vital. And, really just to keep, I think we all are seeking a life of more vitality and more happiness, and being able to really reach our potential. And I think that, natural healing is a great way to lead people to that ability. So
absolutely, we love that too. We love seeing vibrance and health in families that we work with too. So,
Yeah.
well, thanks so much, Katherine.
Thank you, Ty. It's been fun.
Today, you bet. And
Okay.
I'll see you soon.
Sounds good. Okay. Bye-bye.